Welcome to the Nonfiction Writers, podcasting in a great way. I'm Ryan Aber, joined by Jason Kersey. Jason, earlier this week we had Teddy Allen on, Louisiana Tech's radio analyst. Today it's just you and I talking about OU versus Louisiana Tech, the season opener, Saturday at 6 o'clock at Owen Field. Jason, let's jump right into this thing. A lot of questions for OU, as high as their expectations are. There are a lot of questions about this team. One of the leading ones is the wide receivers outside of Sterling Shepard now that Dorial Green-Beckham has been ruled ineligible for this year. What do you make of that wide receiver group, and who do you expect to really take a step forward, especially on the outside with Shepard?
Well, I definitely think Deron Neal is the guy on the outside. Deron Neal's a guy I think most of us thought was going to start last year, and then that didn't really work out. But I think he's talented enough and to really make an impact. And then KJ Young there in the slot is sounds like he's going to be really good. Now, by the end of the year, that could very well be Micaiah Quick. I think Micaiah Quick is going to be a big-time player for OU. But for now, it sounds like KJ Young's the guy there in the slot. So it's going to be real interesting to follow that because if you have Dorial Green-Beckham, things seem a lot more stable.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
You can move Sterling Shepard back inside if you want. You can do some different things with Deron Neal. You feel like you've got a lot of depth there. Take DGB away, and all of a sudden things are really thin.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, this is where we thought the receiver group was going to be.
Dorial Green-Beckham would have been a bonus.
Right.
But still, given you reported that OU officials were confident that he was going to be ruled eligible. Some other similar things came out, and felt like there was a good chance that the NCAA was going to make that move, and then to not. We saw Jay Norvell a little. I don't know if upset is the right word, but didn't seem real thrilled about the decision earlier this week.
No, he was unlike I've ever seen him before. He said no comment. I don't think I've ever heard Jay say no comment before. But yeah, it's obviously upsetting because I think they really did believe that. I don't think they would have gone and gotten him if they didn't really believe they were going to be able to get him eligible. And now there's all kinds of questions about, well, is he actually even going to stay? Bob was not incredibly committal to that, even when he was asked about it at the Monday press conference. Well, it seems like that's what he wants to do. Well, that's not, if they took a risk, they went out on a limb to bring a guy in like Dorial Green-Beckham, and now they're not even sure if he's ever gonna play it down in Norman. That's got to be a kick in the gut.
Absolutely, and sort of going into that. How good is this scout team right now? You have Baker Mayfield, a guy who started a handful of games last year in the Big 12, had a lot of success, put up some big-time stats. His situation is still up in the air with the NCAA, but right now he's the scout team quarterback. You've got Dorial Green-Beckham, who was the best player on the field in the SEC championship game last year against Auburn. He's on the scout team. OU's defense is getting a little bit of a workout in practice.
Yeah, definitely. It's the scout team offense for OU might be better than a lot of the offenses are going to face this year. So, especially early in the season. So yeah, they're going to be ready to roll. I would think the defense. So.
Absolutely, and there's also a lot of freshmen who are expected to play for Oklahoma this year. Among them, Dimitri Flowers, Samaje Perine, in the defensive backfield, Stephen Parker, and a couple others. Who do you expect to be the biggest impact freshman on the Sooners team this year?
I would say it's either Dimitri Flowers or Micaiah Quick would be the two that I would say, just because. I think Micaiah Quick's going to get a lot of opportunity to play receiver. Even if he never starts, he's going to play a lot, and I think he's so skilled that he's going to make some kind of an impact. And then Dimitri Flowers, if he comes in and is the Trey Millard type. Now, I did think it was sort of interesting that he was number 2 on the depth chart behind Ripkowski. I sort of get it, but I just considering the way that the spring game went, I sort of thought that Dimitri would be the starter there. So that was kind of interesting, but Stephen Parker I think could too. But I'm going to be a little bit hesitant to say any safeties are going to make a big impact as true freshmen, because I really thought Hatari Bird was going to play last year, and he's not even going to start this year. So,
absolutely, and Stephen Parker, it'll be interesting to me to see if he even plays on Saturday with some of the things that happened in the offseason. But I'm going to go with Dimitri Flowers. I think just because he wasn't number one on the depth chart at fullback, he's so versatile and can do so many things. I think they're going to want him on the field so that they can move around and do some of the things that they did with Trey Miller, being able to give defenses different looks with the same personnel on the field. That really works with their tempo, and I think Dimitri Flowers is a guy. I think Micaiah Quick is going to have a big-time impact as well. And it'll be interesting to me to watch the development of those young secondary guys who don't have a lot of experience. There's going to be a couple of them that are going to play a lot, but like you said, it's hard to gauge those guys, especially after what we and seemingly everybody else thought about Hatari Bird last year.
Well, what Hatari Bird thought about Hatari Bird last year?
Yeah, he was promised a starting spot, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And another spot that everybody's looking out for is running back. Keith Ford and Alex Ross, co-number ones at the top of that depth chart. Freshman Samaje Perine right behind them. But who is going to be the best running back on the field Saturday night against Louisiana Tech? Or with Louisiana Tech?
Okay, I was about to say, if it's against Louisiana Tech, that's a different question. I think Kenneth Dixon's the best running back on the field, no doubt. At least at this point. Keith Ford, I've said it all along. I thought he was going to be the starter. I still think he's going to be the starter. But Kenneth Dixon right now is experienced. He's tough. He's a tough runner. I think it'll be kind of fun to watch him play against a really good defensive front and see how he can do.
Yeah, it will be interesting, and I'm with you on Kenneth Dixon. I think he'll be the best running back on the field now. With the news yesterday that Louisiana Tech had suspended a couple of their wide receivers, that's going to make things even more difficult because OU's not going to have those guys to have to contend with on the outside. They're going to be able to just dial up things for Kenneth Dixon, dial up things for Cody Sokol, and it could be a long day for the Bulldogs regardless of how good Kenneth Dixon is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it was going to be a long day for them anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's sort of the one avenue that you saw for them possibly pulling off an upset was Kenneth Dixon just putting up absolutely ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, I mean, but it was never going to happen. They were never going to win this game or even come close to winning it. But I mean, I guess their best chance to do anything, to have any offensive success, was going to be Dixon, and still is Dixon.
Absolutely. And on the defensive side, looking at OU, you've obviously got to start in the middle of the linebacker group with Dominique Alexander there in the middle, and Jordan Evans going to be making his first career start after replacing Frank Shannon. Were you surprised at all that Frank Shannon was nowhere to be found on the depth chart, or was that in line with your expectations, given what we know and what we've seen through this whole saga?
No, I wasn't surprised. I think it makes sense that he's not on the depth chart. They don't want him anywhere near the game field while this plays out. And to be honest, I mean, even if Frank Shannon wins in court, I still wouldn't be surprised if they don't play him at all this year because, I mean, the university has their policy and they're following federal law and they're trying to do the right thing, or at least what they think is the right thing, and they can't just enforce their policy. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised even if Frank Shannon is successful in the courtroom, if OU says, well, this is how you're going to be suspended. You're not playing this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you. I don't think Frank Shannon sees the field at all this year. I think the talk that they were going to play him regardless of this thing was just that, absolute talk. I don't think their intention throughout this process was ever to play Frank Shannon with this thing still hanging over their heads. And also, you sort of feel like maybe this is OU's way of saying, well, you can't drag this out in court and lengthen it and just sort of play stall throughout the season in order to get your way.
That's what I think. I I don't want to say that that's what Frank Shannon and his lawyer are doing because I don't know.
Absolutely,
but I do think that that's what OU thinks they're doing, and yeah, because even something as simple as on August 11th there was supposed to be a hearing in district court to discuss the stay, and Frank's lawyer was unavailable, so they pushed it back to the 21st, which meant that was after school started. And so it's like, okay, what are you guys doing here? Are you just trying to stall it out until the season's over? Well, and so, I don't know what's going to happen with Frank, though. I mean, even after this year, if he doesn't play at all this year, it almost seems like when this all came out, when he was accused, if he would have just decided to transfer then to another big school, he could have sat out this year, come back next year. Or he could have gone down to, a UCO or something like that and gotten to play and gotten to keep getting better individually. I mean, but instead they've dragged this out and now they're into the season. So if he loses in court now, he gets kicked out of school after school's already started. That completely screws up his, the next 2 years of his life. So I think it's just a tough situation for everybody, but I can't understand why they're doing this. They're still trying to push this.
Yeah, it's been a soap opera from the beginning, and it's unbelievable that here we are in late August, getting ready to start the season, and it's still going on.
And the other thing is, Frank's lawyer and Frank are not stupid people. They have to realize that he's not going to play this year at all, regardless of what happens. I mean, like you said, I guess it's possible he wins in court and then they put him back on the field, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that he's going to play this year.
Yeah, I absolutely don't either, which wraps into Jordan Evans and how well he performs at that spot. Last year, Dominique Alexander was fantastic when he replaced Corey Nelson midway through the season after a little bit of stumbles early in the season, especially in that Texas game. But Jordan Evans showed flashes last year as a freshman, was hurt a couple times, and that limited his production, but really improved throughout spring. Do you think he's ready for this kind of leap?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be really good. And that's the other thing is that, if the Shannon's attorney tries to say that, OU's not abiding by this because they're not letting him play, they can always just say, well, we thought Jordan Evans was better, because I'm not sure that he is right now, but he could be eventually. And so, I don't think I think that's a legitimate argument. I mean, Jordan Evans was going to be fighting for a lot of playing time this year, regardless of what happened with Frank Shannon. And
another guy that we're likely to see in some capacity on defense at times is Caleb Gastelum, a walk-on from Claremore, played at Tulsa NOAA, the homeschool association, has played a lot on special teams the last 3 years, but it's a big role adjustment for him, going from being a into the bench fill-in at linebacker against Oklahoma State, had a couple tackles in that game, to being number 2 on the depth chart behind Jordan Evans.
They need to give the man a scholarship is what they need to do, because they've got at least one available.
Yeah,
Nixon's is available right now, and they're only going to need it for a year for Caleb because he's a senior. So, yeah, I think they ought to give him a scholarship if they can. I don't know whether it's too late, but yeah, I mean, he's going to get to play. He's kind of undersized, so I don't know how much of an impact he can really have. But I also think,
but here's a walk-on who's played in more than 30 games, special team wise. They clearly think he's a key piece for them one way or another.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I just think that to play middle linebacker in this defense, they want somebody they probably would prefer to have somebody who's already on scholarship.
Absolutely, and I don't think we're going to see him a lot, but I think there are going to be times when they're probably going to have to need him. They needed him in the Bedlam game last year when Jordan Evans was hurt, and made a couple tackles, but certainly his role has taken a leap forward this year.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do in there. I think a guy like Tay Evans, they're going to have to think about playing him. Now, maybe he's not ready. Not all freshmen can come in and play the way Dominique Alexander did, but I think they're gonna need to look in that direction too.
And then if somebody gets hurt, there's probably likely going to be some moving going on with Aaron Franklin could be involved, a couple other guys from the outside that could could shift into the interior as well.
I always forget that Aaron Franklin's on this team. I really do. I think I've said that on this podcast before.
Yeah, but we said it last week.
I always forget about him. It's amazing that he's still around.
Absolutely. But he is, and they're probably going to need him at some point. Jason, for you, when the depth chart came out Monday, what was the biggest surprise outside of some of the ones we've touched on already?
Oh, I was a little surprised that there was no Cortez Johnson on it at all. He's clearly been passed over by Dakota Austin, Stanbon Taylor, and now Jordan Thomas. But I was still a little surprised he's not even third string on either side at corner. He's not in there. I thought maybe he would be a decent nickelback, if they want to try to. But they didn't even have nickelback on the depth chart at all, which I also thought was interesting.
Yeah. And then Jordan Wade was another one that really stood out to me. Mm-hmm. He was a guy who filled in for Jordan Phillips last year after Jordan Phillips, the nose guard, went down after the Notre Dame game, played fairly well throughout the rest of the regular season, wasn't the dominant force that Jordan Phillips was, but then to see him fourth on the depth chart on Monday was a bit of an eye-opener behind Matt Romar and Torrey Peterson.
Yeah, that was weird. There must be something going on there, and I don't know if there's some sort of, I don't know. He would have to be either really bad in fall camp, or there would have to be some sort of disciplinary thing for that to happen, considering how well he played, even against Alabama. So.
Absolutely, and that was, like I said, that was a bit of a shock to me. And like you mentioned, no nickelback on the depth chart, which it'll be interesting to see how much they wind up going with 5 defensive backs with some of the different things that they've talked about doing with Eric Stryker and Julian Wilson moving to corner now.
Yeah, Eric Stryker, I think, is the one that makes that possible just because of the versatility there. He can sort of do anything out there on defense. Well, not anything, but he can do a lot of things on defense that other guys can't do, so that allows them to be more versatile there.
All right, Jason, last bit of talk before Saturday's game is prediction time. What do you think happens on Saturday, and what's your bold prediction for the game?